today.
I'm gonna start recording. So it's literally like I chase rabbits all the time. So this is my informal, I guess. Thing right here.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. So forgive me if I'm completely like butcher it. So here we are. The wonderful Aaron Sheppard.
The wonderful Mark Abelman.
And we're just
the wall.
And the wall. And we're going to talk about his word and the weight that it means.
How many words do you want?
You can do a phrase. It's the weight of words. So if it's a phrase, it's important to you. So it's like whatever moves you.
Well, okay. Well, I guess then it could be anything.
It could be anything.
And what's been fascinating to me recently, just a few days ago, I've had maybe it's some sort of idea of like unity or beginning and then spreading out and then coming back together kind of thing. Some sort of idea that humans might have with understanding chaos, which I don't have a problem just letting chaos be chaotic. I think that's amazing. But creating some sort of pattern or understanding maybe, so that's abstract. But what interested me, and I included in some of my work and writings as early as when I left Nebraska for undergrad, going to DC, was this idea of the supercontinent. And then it's science and everything too. And you're thinking about time, like millions and billions of years or whatever. I mean, not billions on the Earth, but I don't fucking know.
I don't know.
As much as I've studied it and looked at it, do we really know? And what is the fact and what is not the fact and what reality and what alternate universe and all, there's a lot of stuff that could be. And anyway.
That is so powerful. I will share with you too that I'm going to get in there so I can get it. I'm pushing it back a little bit so I'm in there too. That I watched this podcast about Anderson Cooper and Laurie Anderson was talking about it. And I love her. And she talks about the unknown, like when you die, it's part about death. And it's like exactly what you're talking about. The abstractness of it, like who knows? Like who knows how big it is or how, anyways.
And this concept of time and living or existing outside of time or a linear kind of fashion, or is time even linear? That's like kind of, come to make a pattern out of chaos or whatever. Mm-hmm. And maybe, I don't know, surely time was way before people, but this concept of time was along with people. Which is not that recent. Not that long ago. It's pretty recent.
Is it possible that chaos is its own pattern?
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
And maybe a lot of times I feel caught in a world where pattern is chaos. And it might make sense for us to drive or have laws to get from one place to another, or make agreements, legal agreements, so we all understand each other. That's great, but just there's something else that a lot of times pattern, and maybe it happens with a lot of people, is in and of itself confusing and chaotic, And so maybe like what you're saying, chaos in all of its manifestations, or not. Is there also the existence of non-existence? I don't know. Is there a pattern that can be created? I don't know. It's fucking great shit.
I love that. Is great shit, because you know what I feel really, this goes into part of my feeling is that since we don't know anything, how can we always feel like we have answers, right? Like there are no answers to some questions, and to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like that is for me okay.
Yeah.
Not knowing.
Yeah.
There is not a need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it fascinating to try and figure some things out. But it's never, like, the questions are always more important and more fulfilling than answers. And those answers will always change anyway, but sometimes the questions stay with you forever.
I love questions.
Yeah.
I love questions. I think it drives my family crazy, but I really love them. I really do, because I'll ask these questions, like, who fucking cares? She'll look at me like, who fucking cares?
Well, maybe some people.
But it's just
don't
intended to be
care.
exactly, and that's
And-
okay, right?
And they have different questions. They're like, "You're blowing my mind." But then if they asked you, like, this is what kind of is interesting about your project, like you put any kind of thing that resonates with any individual, it could be like, well, that was with that person.
Right.
That was not necessarily with another person. This is a question for you. It may not necessarily, it might blow somebody's mind, or like, I don't want to talk about that with another person, but they have their own questions that, you know, there might be a way, there might be some bridges and there might be some thoroughfares that connect, but maybe sometimes it's okay if they don't.
Right.
But this is a unifying kind of thing with desperate people, meaning, you know, disparate.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Separate people,
Right.
not desperate.
But that's part of it for me. Part of the project will be just the time to spend together, right? The connectivity, whether it's understanding, maybe we don't understand each other to your point, or maybe we do, doesn't matter. We get to spend time together for one, which is something that is really a part of the project that I really haven't talked about, which I'm going to learn as I go, right? So
Yeah.
that's really fun. So to me, like, your word today may be completely different. I asked you later today or tomorrow, right?
Oh, totally.
Or the weight may change.
Well, I want to have, right, and I want to have, like, you were telling me about this and I thought I understood the project. And then I saw the other space and I was like, wait, did I misunderstand? And then when I got here and we started talking about it, I was like, oh no, I understood. So I started thinking about when you were telling me about your project, if you wanted me to add to it, the way I understood it was, oh my God, I have to have an important word. I have to have one that like is important and is poignant and is like, says it all for this moment right now with me.
Right.
But I had some, and you know, before, like we were talking about, like looking up these different words and being interested in language and having the word of the day on your phone or whatever on your calendar, and especially with writing. Sometimes it's weird. Sometimes words will come to me, especially when I'm trying to name a piece of artwork, and sometimes it's just a sound, and this has happened a few times. I can only think of one example right now, but this has happened where, oh, that's the name of the work. And then I have to look it up. Oh, this has happened in meditation too. I'm like, oh, that's a word. Okay, I guess. I'll look it up and see if it's actually a word and then find the meaning of what the word is. I probably spell it wrong, but like phonetically, this has happened before. So it happens both ways where it's just like an intuitive, some sound. Maybe it's from the subconscious, I'd heard it before or something, and then it somehow trickles its way through all the bullshit, and like, that's a word, and I'd have to look it up, and you know.
I love both elements of that, like your discovery of a word, but the other thing that I love too is, and I don't know if this may be a misunderstanding, but the idea of like, a word is whatever you're feeling or comes to you.
Yeah.
Right, where it doesn't need to be a word that somebody else uses.
No.
This is now officially a word.
No, it's true.
And to me, that is the most brilliant thing ever. I love that more. Like, I haven't really talked about that really with my project, but
Yeah.
I love that. The idea of, Lola used to use the word yesternight, and I was like, fuck, that's such a basic concept. Like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't yesterday that she did it, it was yesternight. And it's like, for me, I've always used words or like feelings, right? Where it's like, maybe it's just a visceral, whatever it is, because language is not just necessarily words.
Right. Right.
So that was the concept. But so the weight of the words is about words, but doesn't mean that I need to be attached to the word, right? Like, let's say it's another language and I have no idea. Somebody from Africa comes and says, this is my word. Well, it's like, okay, I'd love to hear what it means to you and what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or a symbolism. Sorry, I'm rambling a little.
No, you're not. That's perfect. Because there are different layers with that, which some of these words, like I was saying, like I'll hear it or it'll come to me and it'll be like, oh, that's a word. I just thought that was a sound. And there's the other ones where you invent the words, like, oh, that's just an invented word. And that happens with, or it's a different language. And now I've been talking with some friends. I guess it's been helpful. Maybe it's a little distracting about getting into James Joyce, which I had never gotten into. And of course, I go straight for Finnegan's Wake, and it's, I mean, as much as none of the words make sense, it also does, and it's allowing kind of a passage like we were talking about. Something might be important to somebody else and not important to the other person, but the sing-songy, whether it's in your head, which I'm reading in like the book, seeing the words and having them resonate inside my head, which is one way to interact with words and language. But then also, it's been really helpful to get it on audio book and listen to it, be told with confidence that I otherwise would be stumbling around with, and hearing it. So that's been really important too. It's exactly what you're talking about. You can make up your words, and sometimes that leads to more communication, even though it might be more chaotic or misunderstood. Maybe not misunderstood, that's not the right word. It may be more chaotic, it may be more understood in some ways with, I don't know, there's like connections with people that we kind of we rely on making sense and being literal and communicate. You're not an effective communicator.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right.
But sometimes being an effective communicator is really finding maybe the words and the way of expressing yourself is more on the side of chaos or or feeling or emotional than it is being literal.
I think more clarity comes out of that chaos, like to your point.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of clarity that can come out of confusion or chaos.
Yeah.
You need to struggle a little bit, I guess, is what I would say, before you can find clarity sometimes. And then what you're talking about, okay, so maybe you're in chaos and you find some clarity, but then you're right back in chaos again. I mean, it always goes like that, where it's like, it's an ebb and flow to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get lost and emotional and all the gamut of human emotions, and it will come and go and ebb and flow, and that's why maybe we'll become. I don't know. This was another thing I was talking with friends about that was interesting about language and the human mind and what is considered healthy versus unhealthy, or pattern versus chaos. And there was, because I guess, I don't know, I just heard from friends that were really James Joyce fans, that James Joyce was friends with Carl Jung, and James Joyce's daughter suffered from schizophrenia. And James Joyce saw his daughter as, well, she lives in her own world, she has her own understanding, and it was more of a let go, like, this is her life and this is her world. And I'm not condemning her to, that's going probably a bit too far in my interpretation of this story that was told to me, whether it's true or not. But it's a nice thing to think about, or an interesting thing to think about. Condemned to one certain reality when she exists in more than just trying to cope with this reality, that this pattern that makes no whatever sense to her and whatever nonsense to her. James Joyce embraced that. And Jung was like, dude, she's living in pain. She's suffering. So there were two different takes. Like this dude who had really gone into the human psyche and tried to find a zeitgeist of symbolisms that can span, time and different cultures of humanity, and say, dude, she's suffering. Don't you get? She's like living in hell, and which is understandable from one point of view, but also from James Joyce's side, like she's born the way she's supposed to be, and she's living the life, and you don't want to let people in your life, especially anybody, suffer.
Right.
We see people on the street all the time that we may interpret as suffering for one reason or another, hurting. The main thing is there's some things that maybe we don't understand or see or live in the world, but we can offer like George Carlin used to say, he's not homeless, he's houseless. Give them something that they don't have to, this reality that we see as being hurtful for them, a bath, a shelter, something like that, maybe that's more helpful than trying to change somebody into conforming to this reality that we've all decided is normal. So, I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, just I understand both sides.
Well, it's different for every houseless or homeless person, right? There are some people that want help. Mm-hmm. There are some people that don't want help. Mm-hmm. That has become their reality. Why not, to your point about James Joyce, like, I think it's always about understanding that person though, right?
Right.
Like if that daughter is like fine, right? If she's not suffering and this is her reality, then
can we learn from that?
Can you learn from it?
Can we
accept?
Realize that even within ourselves, whether we're labeled as, or the doctor says, you know, like, oh, you're schizophrenic or whatever, don't we all have capacity and existence beyond how we present ourselves and wake ourselves up and, you know, go throughout the day and interact with people? I mean, we're interacting with the world and with our spirituality and our spiritual nature and with other energies of other people and nature and the cosmos in so many different ways that we ignore.
Yeah.
So for this one pattern.
So to that point.
Yeah.
When I talk to you or I talk to anybody else, how do I really know what's behind those eyes, right? The only way I can get to know them is like to that point. Like when you think about a homeless person or people that look normal, if you will,
yeah.
Like how do I know that those are the people that are really that are in so much pain? There was an image of somebody that just talked about her husband committing suicide, and they were so in love, and everything was they were soulmates. It's like something's disconnected here, right? Like to me, how I don't understand. Like,
right.
To your point, like, are people allowed to be authentic in this world? So therefore, can I be authentically, you know, how authentic can I be? To your point, do I need to obey the laws of the land to fit in? You know, how authentic am I allowed to be? If I have schizophrenia, it's like how capable am I of just existing and being and having a let's say a support system that will allow me to be there, that it will support me in being the best person I can be based on my mental condition.
I mean, we all face that, whether we're
right.
labeled with something or not, and we're all in different cultures and different places within those cultures, within those countries that treat things differently.
Right.
From Texas to California, or from Central America to Thailand. I mean, there's so many different ways and cultures of. Hi.
Hi. I'm on a deadline. I'm sorry I can't play.
Okay.
Visit. Talk.
All right.
Absorb your energy.
All right. Next
Should I
time.
say bye to you? Or am I not going to see you? I'm going to run off and go to Josh.
What's that?
I'm going to go to Josh's place.